Welcome to the Destination Kingdom podcast.
Where one friend sharpens another.
I'm your host, Dee.
And I'm Key. So welcome, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Destination Kingdom, where one friend sharpens another. We have a surprise for you guys. So we have a guest on today's show. Her name is Jasmine Chenice. Mm-hmm. She is a brand strategist, a faith influencer, a podcast host, a wife, a mother, and I'm going to let her tell the rest of her story. But welcome, Jasmine, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So like they said, my name is Jasmine Chenice. I'm a personal brand strategist for women of faith and women in ministry who are trying to build more reach and influence online. So I am a full-time entrepreneur. I own my own business. This is what I do full-time. But on top of that, I have a podcast that I'm launching, also called Her Brand, Her Ministry, where I just talk more about how God has designed our brand to be our ministry and kind of just what that looks like. And so I'm happy that you guys have welcomed me on the show, another kingdom, faith-based show. So I'm here for it.
Yay.
Yes, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead, Dee.
So just to kind of dive in today, we'll talk a little bit about what made us ask Jasmine to be on the show. So she made a post about her relationship and how she kind of had to surrender her relationship goals to Christ. And so a lot of times on this show, we've talked about how we surrender our lives and our businesses to Christ, but we kind of wanted to have a conversation about what that looks like in a relational setting, because to me, it's very different. So
yeah. So, Jasmine, the first question, dun, dun, dun. Can you give us a little background on your love story?
Yes. So my husband, which I've been married now for like a month and a half, so newlywed still. But the testimony is I met my husband right after college. So of course we were young and, young in love, and everything just spiraled really fast. Our relationship was built on fun. It was built on us just having fun together, doing crazy things, being around the city, being in these streets. Okay. And so, things happen really fast where, we both knew God. That's what attracted us to each other. We both were raised in the church. That's what attracted us to each other. But at one point when our relationship started to get a little hard, God wasn't so much in the midst of our relationship anymore. It went from going to church every Sunday to skipping it and just staying at home and doing other things that we maybe should not have been doing. So it was definitely something where everything was going good in our relationship. We got engaged. We had a baby. Well, we had a baby, then we got engaged, and then things just kind of started to get hard and God was starting to challenge us. And it was right after he had just got baptized in church. And so if you know how that is, you gonna go through a roller coaster after that, or you just get challenged in general. So we didn't really know how to navigate because our relationship was always up. It was always fun. We didn't have drama. We didn't argue. But because we never had as many issues, we didn't know how to navigate them. So when things started to get rocky, we didn't lean on God or even know what that really looked like to do in a relationship. So things went all the way left. We ended up calling off our wedding. And it was devastating to be somebody who we just had a baby. For a lot of people, we probably were relationship goals. And it was just kind of everything was taken away from me. So, being raised by a single mother, your biggest fear is to become a single mother. But we just went through all of these things, and basically through the process of just letting it go, surrendering it to God, saying, okay, fine. If that's not what you had for me, I'm going to go after what it is that I know you had for me. And that's when he told me to leave my job and start my business and all these great things I've done. But bringing it back full circle, he never let me really leave him alone, even though I wanted to. I prayed about it. Like I was like, please release me. But God like made me stay in his life, made me be his friend, made me be his confidant and there for him. And I wanted to hate him. I wanted to have nothing to do with him. I didn't want to talk to him. But when you're a parent and you're trying to be a mature parent, you're like, okay, he has to be in my daughter's life. Like, that's not a question. So yeah, that's just kind of what it looks like for me. We got back together, we got rekindled, and then we had another baby. And then things just still weren't going right for me. I'm like, we're not doing something right. And what I'm not going to do is do what we did last time. So if we're going to be together and this is going to be a thing, like it has to be God. Like, so you're going to go to counseling. I'm going to counseling. We're going to do marriage counseling. We're going to build our faith. We're going to build our relationship with God, because I'm cool with staying a single mom, even if I have to, if it's not God's will. Like I was so adamant about that, to where we both just start growing like crazy. And God started doing things in our individual lives and together. And we finished marriage counseling, and people have prophesied over us like, this is your husband. And I'm like, no. Check again, like make sure this time now.
Right.
But yeah, our testimony is just, we ended up eloping recently, getting married, because our pastors, some pastors in our church were the people who did our marriage counseling, and they told us the date, and they felt led for us to get married at this certain time. And we were just like, cool. We had no reservations. We felt like we had built up our relationship with God and had him in the midst, and learned what it looks like to have a godly marriage and have him in the relationship. That, yeah, I just felt like, okay, this is his will. So let's do it. Even if it wasn't at first very comfortable.
Yeah. I think it's something to that peace that you have when God tells you that this person is for you. And sometimes I also sometimes think, just from my personal story, that people sometimes, you feel like that person is for you and you've communicated to God, and in that season that person is for you, but they don't always make it to that marriage side. So there's a peace that comes with knowing that I actually listened to God and I followed what he told me, you know? And I'm like, it's something you can't really explain. It's like, people like, what does that peace feel like? Like, I'm like, I don't know. It's no words for it, but I get that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
It even reminds me what people even say, like when God tells them that that person is not their husband, you know, like you might be in love and happy and everything seems great and going great and you high over heels in love. That doesn't make it God's will.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely, I'm like, look, that's my story. It was my story, I should say. It's not my story anymore, but it was. It was.
It's hard.
Right. You talked about surrendering your relationship to God. Like, what did that look like for you? Because you talked about you wanted to stop talking to him, but was there a season where you all had a child, so clearly you really couldn't stop talking. But was there
I wanted to be petty. I wanted to be. You can't talk to my kid unless you talk to me.
Child, listen. But were there like boundaries that you kind of tried to put up, and then Jesus was like, I didn't tell you to put up the boundaries.
Right. Well, just surrendering to God in general for me looks like just being a sloppy mess. I mean, like, that's what it was for me. Like, I cannot do this on my own anymore. I done tried, I done failed, I done embarrassed myself. I'm hurt. I'm everything. I'm a mess. Like, if I'm going to be better, it's only going to be on you. Like, just straight being like, I'm done. And that is what surrender looks like to me. It's saying like, you're not perfect. You weren't meant to be perfect. You know, there's going to be things that you want that maybe I don't want, you know. It was just a full saying like, fine, like my life is not my own. To you, I belong, you know. It was a whole situation, me in a closet, on the floor, on my face, sobbing type of thing. So surrendering is not pretty, okay? It's not pretty. So for me, it was just me in the process of building my faith. And that's when God was having me do all these things with my business. And also I learned I was very comfortable in my relationship to where, well, Key knows me in college. So I was like always like super busy, ambitious, student leader, doing stuff. Yeah. But when we did get engaged, I was super comfortable. A lot of dreams and aspirations that I once had, it just kind of was in the back of my head. I wasn't just the same Jasmine. And so sometimes even, maybe God was doing what he was doing because he wanted to shake things up in me again. And he knew I was just chilling, really, just comfortable, just being a mom, overwhelmed. Like, okay, I'm a fiance now, a new fiance, a new mom. Like, I was just trying to figure it all out. And God could have definitely shaken things up because he needed me to refocus. He needed to get my attention, whereas otherwise he might not have got it.
That is so good. That question about surrendering, it really hits home for me because that's where I'm at right now. Like, I'm literally like that crying in the closet, that boo-hoo, like, Lord, okay, I know what I want. I think I hear what you say, but I can't really tell. And until I get some clarity, like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm not touching nothing, saying nothing, moving nothing. I'm not doing anything but staying right here on my face to you. And no matter what your will is, help me to accept it and help me to just rest in it. Like, that's a big thing for me, is just like resting in not doing anything but trusting God. And that's so foreign, especially I think in our culture today with our generation. The concept of resting in God, or just the concept of rest, period, is like, no, you need to be always hustling, you need to be always doing something. If you like how people say, like, if the pandemic didn't bring out the hustle in you, then you never had it. And it's like, man, some people are fighting for their mental health. Some people are fighting for their faith. Some people are fighting to pay their bills. Like, they don't have time or the luxury right now to start a business or chase a dream or whatever. You know? So that's really good.
And some people are grieving like it's COVID-19. We're in a pandemic. And though I used to agree with a lot of those posts, like, yeah, hustle, hustle, hustle. But I was like, I actually don't really agree with it anymore. And God had to deal with me with coming out of that hustle mentality, and how that's not what faithpreneurship is. That's not what kingdompreneurship is. And it looks a lot different than just the regular doing business as usual.
Yeah, definitely. I think God always gets you to a point where he has to break you in your life so that you can really get that clarity that you guys are talking about. I know for myself, the crying on the floor, the ugly cry, look, laying on the floor, like, yes, I'm like, I think you have to get there so that you can really hear, like, this is what God has for me. And I think that's also what gives you that peace that we were talking about earlier. So.
And that Kiara Shear's new song, Something Has to Break.
Girl, I was just listening to Kiara.
We were listening to her album. It's that song, Big, Big, Big. Girl, that one had me in a worship before this recording. Like, Denitra and I were trying to get ready and stuff. And I texted, I was like, I need 10 minutes. Because I was just in the bathroom just going in on that song. Her whole album is a whole bop. Like,
yes.
We talked about her on last week's episode. I mean, the last episode that we did, we talked about actually her faith and God bringing her husband. You know what I mean? And them doing the ceremony and just kind of doing it their way. Almost in a way like what you're talking about. So walk us through that eloping process. How was that?
Well, I think the eloping may not be the correct term, because later I found out eloping is like when you don't tell your parents and you like just go leave and do it. But to me, I called it eloping because it was us literally a month's notice just doing it. And the thing about it is I already had a wedding dress. I already had the flower girl dresses. I already had all the decorations because I called off a wedding and I never wanted to throw anything away.
Right.
So I was ready.
Mhm.
Like most people don't elope in a ball gown wedding dress in the backyard of an Airbnb. But I
Right.
was ready.
Yeah.
Like
Right. Your
I
dress
had
is
everything
beautiful
already.
too.
Yes, your
Um,
dress and the I don't know what it's called, but the thing that you had over your shoulders, like
Yeah.
everything was just
I
so
had all of that.
it was beautiful. I was here for
Thank
it.
you. Like for us, it was basically just saying like, I just want people there who are my immediate family. I'm talking about it was only mom, dad, and siblings, no cousins, aunties, not even grandparents. And I had my best friend there who was also my maid of honor back then because I had bridesmaids, I had everything, y'all. But she was there because she's like a sister to me. And I feel like I needed a friend there because at the time my mom had got COVID or was currently getting over it. So I thought she couldn't come. And I'm not that close with my dad where I wasn't raised with him. So like I needed a void, somebody help me fill that void who was close to me, you know. And so it's just been a blessing how he was able to bring our families together. Now me and my dad talk more. Me and my brothers talk more. We never used to FaceTime. But my husband's family, they're big on family. And I watch him call his cousins and FaceTime each other. And, you know, family just pops up at the house. You know, they're from the country. People don't call
Right.
before they come. And I'm from the city. I'm from Oakland. I lived in Atlanta. Like I'm a city girl out here in the country. And so it's definitely new for me, but like this whole process has been a surrendering of me being a city girl, being cool with just living in the country or playing it small and being humble and well, not thinking of it as playing small, but he just having to change my whole mindset, like about everything. And so even back then when I had my wedding dress, it was too big and I was supposed to get it adjusted to my body back then. But 3 years later, I done gained weight. So it
Haven't
fit
we all?
perfectly,
Right.
right?
Haven't we all,
So
gang
I'm
baker?
like, maybe that was, you know, that could have been God's plan. He knew maybe I was going, you know, pick up a few pounds.
Yeah.
And like when I tell you everything was just, I didn't have to really order too much. And I went with the fake bouquet. And before our mind wasn't in the right mindset. I mean, I wanted everything big, fancy, only real flowers, everybody coming, trying to impress people. But this wasn't about pressing people. This was about just giving our relationship to God. Really, that's what marriage is. And so that's how it was for us.
That's beautiful.
It is.
That's beautiful. You got the next question, D?
Yes. So were you ever scared that y'all wouldn't make it?
Yeah, I think fear always still exists. It's just not entertaining it or feeding into it or giving fear any authority or you know because when you went through something already naturally it's like okay well clearly I know what you're capable of so you know I already know what I'm dealing with here and trying not to have that mindset is what marriage counseling showed us in general like you know how to think mindset shifts like I had to tell myself, you know, that when I do have fear, when I do feel anxiety, when I'm stressed out, all these things that I used to put on him, when I'm nagging him, telling him how I feel, you know, trying to get him to see my perspective, whatever, I was taught that that's the point of God being in your relationship because you go to God with those issues, not your spouse. And the world don't teach you that.
Good. That's good. Look, I'm a new fiance, so I'm here for this. Thank you.
And I thought, like, you're my confidant. Like, I tell you everything. You get all the smoke because you my husband. Like, but they were like, no, like, even if y'all aren't on terms at the moment, even going to God saying, well, God, how can I partner with you so you can do what you're doing in his life? Like, it's like a God first approach. And, you know, I've been a Christian, been in church my whole life, what have you, but I've never had things really broken down to me until like the last 5 years of my life.
I just want you to know you came for me, Jasmine. I know you told a testimony, but Jesus just all the way came for me. Because Denitra knows my life. She knows my story. And that whole thing about going to God first, that's actually on my faith board this year about like before I tell anybody anything, I got to pray first. I got to pray first. I got to be quiet for a little while and ask God to give me the wisdom and the knowledge on, okay, how do I handle this? Is this even something I need to say? But I have done that before where I'm like, nope, you going to hear everything I got to say. Nope, this is my problem with you. Hello, you gonna fix it or not?
And I was over communicator like that too. Like I feel like that's what you're supposed to do. That's what communication is in a relationship. Like you have to know how I feel. Now, granted, it's not that they don't know how you feel. It's just that, you know, I don't know. Like maybe God reveals to you timing. Sometimes God will reveal to you that you're just being petty. But yeah, like, and it's not to say I'm perfect and I do this all the time, but it's now I have the knowledge and the wisdom that is how it's supposed to work. So when I find myself like wanting to go at him or like, you need to understand how I feel, it's kind of like, maybe I should like talk to God about this a little more because yeah, I'm dumping all of this on him right now. And clearly it's too heavy. And that's what the grace of God is for. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think God works with you on like even how to deliver that message when it's time for you to tell your spouse or your person, you know, like he tells you like how to approach them and like how to say it. Because when you do it with your emotions, it's like, dang, bro, I really just snapped on you for no reason.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And if I would have took some time and talked to God first, like, okay, this could have been done a lot better.
Have you guys like adjusted to apologizing in those moments where like, okay, dang, I messed up. I should have went to God first before I came to you. I'm sorry. Like, how do those apologies kind of look when you're trying to reconcile that?
Yeah, I apologize. I think we apologize to each other a lot, actually, because it's like you have your moments and you have to recognize that you are human and this whole perfect spouse don't really exist. It just is a matter of, you know, saying I'm sorry if you need to and being okay with, you know, agreeing to disagree or just being okay that he may not share the same opinion or just being okay if he don't have nothing to say. And that used to irritate me. You ain't got nothing to say. You ain't got nothing to say. But just being okay with all of that.
Oh, Jasmine, girl.
God coming for these necks.
I mean, chopping. God is over here chopping. And for our Real Friends crew, we did go to college with Jasmine, and Jasmine and I particularly, we had our own friendship in college, and we didn't talk a lot after college, but we kept up with each other on social media, and when we saw each other out in the city, it was always love. So I say that to say Jasmine has no clue how she chopping. I'll say in my neck specifically. But this is definitely God speaking right now and confirming some things that he's been dealing with me on. So amen and amen.
And it's so hard because when you think of, and I was raised by a single mom, right? So that whole scripture about, you know, submitting to your husband, it was always a thing that we, ideal that I like naturally challenged, like making sure people knew the rest of the verse, like he submits to me too. Get it right. And even the scriptures about being slow to speak. And when you start looking at Proverbs 31 woman, you be like, is this realistic? Like, because God know me, he created me, and I got a lot to say. But just learning, like, you know, you want marriage. Marriage is a godly thing. So you're going to have to learn the godly way.
That part. Look,
and
that
it's
part.
just that on that.
Dropping gems, dropping mics over here. Oh, I think we covered that last question, D.
We did.
Yeah, the last question was about how do you surrender in your marriage? And I think you have definitely touched on that with just the surrendering process being ugly and then also having to apologize because we're not perfect. And that's the whole point of this podcast with D and I sharing portions of our lives and portion of the past and present. And then just kind of being honest with saying like, we're not perfect, but God still deems us worthy. And there's nothing that we could ever do to make him say, you know what, you're not worthy of my love anymore, besides continuously reject him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. But even like surrendering your ideals or expectations of who they are supposed to be or how you wanted them to be as your significant other. Because you have to, I remember a quote back in like, I don't remember when, but it was a quote that basically says like, we have to each commit to our own development. Like we have to commit to our own journeys. And if our journeys is, down a healthy route, then we'll always meet each other. And just being okay where like if I'm on a whole spiritual journey in my Bible and he's not, that's not the case right now. Luckily I got him a new Bible for Christmas.
Amen.
But it's kind of like it's not that he's a bad person, he's a sinner, or if the roles were reversed. And even my pastor talks a lot about accountability. Accountability in relationships are real because it's like at one end, you don't want to judge, you want to understand they have their own journey. But also I've learned that our relationship has to have some kind of healthy accountability. Because granted, if I start falling off and saying, forget all this branding, ministry, faith-based stuff no more, and I decide I want to start going back to like smoking sessions and drinking and going to the club, has to be some kind of accountability there where it's like, well, based on your goals and the things that I know you want to do in life, and based on the things I know God has told you, like, are you sure? Like, you can't just be like, sure, girl, like, I'll roll your blunt. Like, there has to be some kind of accountability in a relationship where we do have to sometimes maybe check each other if we see ourselves going down a route that maybe God didn't want us or intend us to go down, but also try not to judge and be all up in their personal journey where it's like, you need to fix this and this and that, because like, it's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Accountability is important. Look, in romantic relationships, but we also talk about it from a friendship perspective too. Like you need accountability with your friends and your man. Okay.
And that's sometimes hard too, because you have friends who may not be where you are in your spiritual journey. So the wisdom you seek and the feedback you're hoping to get, maybe your friends can't give you that. And then it's kind of like, well, what do you do? And so me confiding in my pastor, who was our marriage counselor, or just connecting with other faith-based women has been helpful for me just in 2021. Because I'm able to have those conversations that I maybe can't have with my direct friends.
Yeah, that's real.
Very much so. Very much so. This has been an amazing episode. I feel like Jasmine, we're definitely gonna have to talk offline.
I'm like, she definitely dropped some gems for me too. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. And I don't know everything, y'all, but I'm just sharing, my journey, what I've learned, what God's revealed to me, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So, real friends, we, Jasmine, if it's okay with you, we wanted to post the link of the IG post that you had that actually inspired this episode in our show notes. And that way, people can kind of find your IG and tell them where else they can find you and your brand and your ministry.
Yeah, that's fine. Cool with that.
Okay. And then, look, if do you know when your podcast is launching?
Yeah, it's actually supposed to be launching soon, I'll say. Definitely in the next coming month. Yeah, because it's such a God thing, like he be having to release it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's always hard because it'd be like, I've been ready to launch since, time's a ticking. But yeah, so it's coming soon, definitely in the next month, for sure. So just be on the lookout. Follow me. on Instagram and stuff.
Follow her. She'll let y'all know when it's coming out. Another faith-based podcast. So.
Yes.
So, Jasmine, what is your handles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, all that good jazz?
So it's Jasmine Chenice. That's my middle name, Chenice, but it's spelled Chenice. So it looks like Chenice a little, but yeah, I'm Jasmine Chenice across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram, of course. But yeah, also JasmineChenice.com is a way to connect with me, especially if you are a woman of faith trying to build your brand, trying to get the strategy, trying to reach who God has called you to serve, trying to get your messaging together, trying to translate the things that God has put on your heart into a brand, a ministry, and how that, looks when trying to, brand yourself and show up online and stuff. So, that's really big in the world right now, like the brand. But that's like my thing, where I feel like God has gifted me to like really understand, especially with women of faith, because he gave me that niche. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's what I do. That's how you can connect with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, real friends, for tuning in. It's been another episode. It's been real. We love you guys. Do you want to say anything in closing?
No, that's it. Thank you, Jasmine, for being our first official guest.
Yes.
And I am sure that our audience will enjoy this as much as we have. She definitely dropped some gems. So yes, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode with us.
Yes, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.